Too tall for you. I love my brother Doug. Shoot. Sorry. I always loved him. I never had fights with Doug. I don't ever remember being mad at Doug. I always admired him, and we got along really well, but it was really when we moved to Woodley Road in the late 70s and through the late 80s that I really got to know him. And it was this time when we spent a lot of time talking. Doug is a talker, so, you know. And I know we're all blends of our parents, but Doug was a real blend of my mom and dad. My dad is, of course, a businessman, he's a CPA, he's prides himself in being analytical. He used to say things like, all right, we're going to go around the table on a scale from 1 to 10, objective being 10 and subjective being 1, where do you rate yourself? And we'd be like, what? That was my dad, right? My mom was, on the other hand, was much more of an artist. She actually was a painter, and my fondest memories of her painting in the garden. She loved painting, and she was also very kind, and she was very passionate, and she had the real faith, this real strong faith. Doug really inherited both of those, and they sort of fought within him. And one thing about Doug on my dad's side with the analytical stuff is Doug is the only person I know who could talk for an hour and a half about how he saved 8 cents on the gas bill. But the thing is, and Jerry alluded to this, Doug did not come to faith easily. We've talked a lot about his faith, and he had a very strong faith, and it was genuine. But Doug came to faith like putting a collar on a wildcat. I mean, he fought for years against it, and he really resisted it. And it's because, and this is probably the single greatest thing about Doug Newcomb. Not only was he passionate, but he was honest. Doug had no flattery. He had no hypocrisy. He just wasn't that wasn't in his nature, and so he was honest. So when he doubted, he was honest about his doubts. And Jerry was right about those fights. And I remember distinctly going for a jog around the neighborhood and coming back toward the house, and I heard all this screaming and yelling, and I'm like, gosh, some neighbor's having a terrible domestic quarrel, you know? And as I'm starting to cool down and slow down as I get closer, I'm like, that almost sounds like it's coming from our house. And I get closer and closer to the driveway with the road, and I realize, that is our house, and that's Doug. And sure enough, I go inside, and they're having a debate about some point of doctrine, and I'm like, what in the world? But he just really resisted because he was honest, and he was passionate, and when he did come to faith, it was genuine, it was real. This was not some fake thing, and that's probably the thing I love the most about him, because I've always felt, I think the thing that I admired most about Doug, and when we got so close, especially in the 80s, was that I could tell him anything. He was the one person, more than any person that I've ever met in my life, who I feel like I could tell that guy anything, and he would love me and accept me, and be my brother, and I knew there would